Do you want more success? Do you want more money? Well, you need to boost your self-worth. In life, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you believe you deserve. My name is Peggy van de Plassche. I'm a former banker and venture capitalist, and I now speak and write about using alternative medicines to improve your life, to get more success and more happiness. So today I'm going to talk about a success is very, very important for me and very important for you, which is if you want to get more of your life, more success, more money, more happiness, more everything, you need more self-worth and more self-love. So it's interesting because we don't really like to use self-worth, self-love. It feels a bit, I don't know, emotional, soft. I tend to be more on the rational side, like most people who are listening. So it was something I was not very keen on for the longest time. But what I can tell you about my story is that since I was a kid, I was always trying to better myself. So I've never met a learning program I wasn't interested in registering. So that could have been speed reading, that could have been communication and leadership skills. I read tons of books. I tried all the sports you can try in your life. And I was always trying to learn and get better. And you might think, well, that's great. That means you're intellectually curious, and that means you want to, actualize or self-actualize and live your best life. And I would say in the grand scheme of things, yes, that is true. The challenge is when this betterment doesn't really come from a place of keen learning, but comes more from a place of fixing oneself. And for the longest time, you would have told me that. I would have said, what do you mean? I'm not trying to fix myself. I love myself. I'm very fine with myself. And a few years ago, I was working with one of my teacher, my personal development teacher, if you want to call it that. And she told me, she said, oh, you need to be more careful and stop beating down on yourself. And I couldn't even understand what she meant by beating down on myself because I really thought I was not. And yes, of course, like everyone, I have this little voice in my head that tends to criticize and judge whatever I do. But I always thought it was normal because, well, yes, I'm not perfect. And we have to say as well that, my idea of perfection was pretty fucked up, like I really thought that you needed to speak like 5 different languages without an accent. You were able to be a professional ballroom dancer while still actually having a CFA and being an expert at playing tennis. So that was my baseline requirement. Doesn't seem very realistic. I agree with you. One of the challenge I'm facing and that you might be facing too is that I'm neurodivergent, so I don't understand nuances very well. So for me, always is always, not sometimes, not 95%, not 99%, it's 100%. So when it comes to, achieving your potential, from my perspective, it means to do absolutely everything absolutely perfectly, which you might agree is not possible for a human being, but I could not accept that. From my perspective, that meant settling, that meant, not living up to my potential. So hence the self-criticism and self-plotting and self-hatred, because, well, I was obviously never good enough on that impossible to achieve bar, And I actually, after my teacher told me that, for a few years, nothing changed because I couldn't really understood what she meant. So, but at some point, I was in Mexico a few years ago, and I was doing a sweat lodge. If you don't know what a sweat lodge is, it can be quite intense. You go in a tent with 10, 15 people, a couple of shamans. Tent is pitch dark, you don't see anything. There is a big fire in the middle, a lot of smokes because the shamans are burning some herbs, and you're chanting. And this lasts, I think, a couple of hours. I don't remember. And but before going in the tent, you need to have your intention. And at the time, obviously, as always, I was so focused with work and money. My intention, were okay, my business or my money, da da da. And then I got a bit of flash of insight, and I was like, self-generated self-worth. I want self-generated self-worth. The thing that is coming intrinsically, that has nothing to do with what your job title is, with how much money you're making, with what is your weight, how much you look, and all that great stuff. And I don't know where it came from. It must have come from, you know, back in my subconscious and finally be ready to come up. So I did the sweat lodge, which was interesting. And at the time, I had another challenge that I thought that changes was overnight. So meaning, well, tomorrow I'm getting up and I have infinite self-worth, you know, I'm totally confident, I love myself. And regardless of what's happening to me, you know, I feel I have high self-worth. Obviously, things don't work like that, but it took me a while as well to realize that, unfortunately. I got a bit more insight on self-worth when I did my trip last year, psilocybin trip, and the first journey after I took 4.5 grams of golden teacher, I received two big messages. One was on my brother who had passed away, and the other one was actually on self-love and self-worth, and specifically my big lack of self-love and self-worth. And it became very graphic because in this altered state of consciousness, I was hallucinating that there was a shaman on top of me that was technically taking rats, serpents, and all these nice animals and things out of myself, which I guess was probably representing my self-hatred and my self-criticism. So if you're wondering, oh, you know that you need more self-worth, these are some of examples for you. You know, like if you're constantly trying to fix yourself, that's a good sign. If you're constantly criticizing yourself or others, that is also a very good sign that you need to boost your self-worth. So why is it so important for you to boost your self-worth? And it's something that I realized actually quite recently. Again, it's always been in the back of my mind, but you know, it's when you have this deep realization, you know, at a cellular level. And I was doing a tapping session. I just finished a tapping session, and a very, very clear understanding just dawned on me, like, you know, a lighting bolt. And it was, oh, can I expect success and money while deep down I assess myself with such a low value? And that was, you know, a bit a revolutionary concept to me, because yeah, I've read all these things, you need to love yourself and it starts with yourself. But I always thought that it was a bit washy-washy. But now I'm just thinking, of course, if myself is already not convinced that I bring tons of value, how could I expect people to associate high value with myself, you know? Or could I constantly judge, criticize, invalidate myself, but expect others to support me and to behave differently? I mean, that's a huge cognitive dissonance. So it's very interesting, because that's really what I wanted to share, and that I've been sharing more and more with my friends, relatives, and everyone who's more or less in a conversation with me, is that if you want the success, the love, the whatever, the money, whatever you're looking for in your life, it really needs to come from inside first, because the universe or the life or the people around you, whatever you want to call it, are just a mirror of yourself. So if you think you suck, well, it's highly likely that the people who are in front of you is going to give you that image, you know. And that has been interesting for me to realize that all the efforts I have made over the years, mostly on working, I could have probably had a better return if I had spent more time allocated resources to increasing my self-worth and my self-love, a bit less to working, and the impact would have been better. So you can look at it as high self-worth equal potential realized equal maximized success, or the other way around, low self-worth equals self-sabotage equal unrealized potential equal crumbs of success. So I really, really want you to stay with that for a second and really think what does it mean for you? And it really doesn't matter at this point if your low self-worth or my low self-worth is coming from dad, mom, siblings, school, church, alliance, and so on. Doesn't matter. At this minute, at this second, you can make a conscious choice that you want to change, and that's the only thing that matters. So you can either continue driving with a foot on the brake and a foot on the accelerator, meaning working hard for success and money, but at the same time loathing yourself, hating yourself, and having low self-worth. Or you can decide to remove the foot from the brake, even a little bit, meaning releasing your self-judgment, your self-criticism, and really, really get the full potential for your efforts. And that has really transformed the way I look at myself and my goals, because yes, I obviously want that when my next book is published, that it's commercially very successful, which will require, and is already requiring, let's be honest, a tremendous amount of work. But I can also choose to believe that I am good enough for the book to be successful, and thus removing my foot from the brake. So again, I can spend all my time working on the book, writing, editing, with my foot 100% on the accelerator, and still 100% of the brake with my self-defeating mindset of I'm not good enough. Or I can spend some time to release that self-defeating approach that maybe is going to put my foot on the brake at, I don't know, 40% maybe only, which would be great, and only put it at 75% of the accelerator. And you can still see the differential is working in my favor. So that's definitely a math that works better for me, especially once you work on your self-defeating mindset. Well, everything you work stay with you for the long term, so you benefit from it. Well, once the book is written, it's written. I still have to do more work while my foot is fully on the brake. So pardon me. So that's really something I want you to think of. Do you want to exert more efforts and more brake, or do you want to have a bit less effort but also less brake? And I can tell you the second is way more attractive. So what's important is how to augment your self-worth. I think you understood. How do you detect your low self-worth? How do you assess, to which degree you would benefit from more self-worth? Now we want to augment it, obviously. So whether you have 20%, 40%, 60%, 80% of self-worth, or should I say self-generated self-worth, but things that don't need, again, external validation and sign of success, you will benefit anyway from more authentic self-worth, whatever you're doing. So the first question you can ask yourself when you decide that you want to increase your self-worth is, first, are you loathing yourself? Are you hating yourself? Are you criticizing yourself? And that is quite easy, actually, because sometimes we have difficulty seeing if we're criticizing ourselves. But as I mentioned, everyone is a reflection of ourselves. So if you're highly critical of others, your spouse, your coworkers, your children, your neighbors, your mother, you name it, very likely you're very critical of yourself, because what you're criticizing in others are parts of you cannot accept. So very often you're going to see someone overweight criticizing overweight people, someone who's broke talking about money constantly and what other people are doing with their money, and so on. So really, really listen to yourself, because it's going to give you a very good idea of what you're criticizing in yourself and what you would benefit in accepting these parts that you're rejecting. It is, the more you repress something, it's the analogy of the volleyball under the water. The more pressure you put, the more it comes back violently and at the most inopportune moment. So you don't want to repress anything, you just want to accept and integrate basically every part of yourself, even the ones you've been told that they were very, very ugly. For the right and wrong reasons. I don't think there is any right reasons to shame anyone, but anyway, I don't want to go in a philosophical debate here. So how do you accept your flaws? I use a couple options. First, Tapping. Yeah, I told you very, very much about tapping already. If you are new, just check previous videos, previous podcasts, previous newsletter. I've been speaking a lot about tapping because it has helped me tremendously with removing limiting belief, removing emotional wounds, and really helping me with removing all these blocks and resistance to my life. The second thing I would recommend if you want to accept one of your flow is really feel the feeling. So for me, shame has been a huge, unfortunately, emotions in my life. It was a tool that has been used a lot in my childhood to make me obedient. So I was pretty much ashamed to take a breath, let's put it that way. And so for me, very often when this emotion comes up, I try to distract myself or to repress it, push it back. No, what I'm doing is that I'm just sitting and I'm staying with it. I'm feeling the shame. And for me, very often it was the shame of being weak, of not doing things properly. So instead of staying at the surface level of feeling criticism, anger, resentment, I will go below, and usually shame or guilt maybe, where underneath, and I would stay with the feeling until it passes. And that really helps integrate. Some people don't like that, so you can tap on it. Tapping is also extremely practical. I would say I like better to tap, but sometimes I just feel the feeling. One thing that would really also help you is increase your level of self-care, because we care for what we value and we value what we care for. And if you're treating yourself and your surroundings like garbage, change that. It can be as easy as putting a bit of makeup, ironing your shirt, eating a bit more healthy, or treating you to something nice, reasonably nice. Again, spending too much money is usually a very good sign of low self-worth and compensating with things. But you want to signal your unconscious and your conscious minds actually that you deserve care because you're worth it. So you really want to brainwash yourself with the idea that you deserve, you're worthy, you're valued, you're important. And trust me, don't worry, you're not going to transform yourself in some megalomaniac because suddenly you increase your self-worth. So this idea that you're going to become a terrible person because you have high self-worth is not going to happen. So don't worry about that. The fourth thing I want to say is something I really like, which is that quote or that affirmation. I don't like the word affirmation, but that thought of today I choose differently. And it's really trying to put myself off autopilot. I've always had a lot of difficulty eating healthy. I love chocolate, I love sugar. But now I have a new mantra, which is today I choose differently. So before going for my daily trip to buy my chocolate eclair at the bakery at the corner of my home, I'm really trying to stop and thinking today I choose differently. What would someone with high self-worth do? Would she jump into the first chocolate pastry available to distract herself and feel better? Or would she maybe have a green juice or nothing at all? So it really requires to be present and get off the autopilot reactions and also the knee-jerk reactions. And the last thing, the fifth thing is compassion. And this was probably the word I hated the most. Again, weakness alert. For me, compassion was weak. And I did that until I realized that I would have better results with an approach that was more tolerant and compassionate towards myself than controlling and authoritative. And I was used to controlling and authoritative from my childhood. So that was my default mode, which was obviously not a very supportive type of education. So and I will let you on a secret, the more you control someone, and whether that someone is yourself, a child, anyone, the more they're going to rebel to demonstrate agency. Because we all want freedom and control of our own life. So this is why you see so much self-sabotage, whether your diet, your job, anything. And it's simply because you're trying to assert yourself towards authority, even if it's you against you, even if it's your mother's voice to your child voice. I know it's mind-bending, but really think about it. The harder you are with yourself, the harder you're going to try to rebel, which is why you see so many boom and busts with celebrities, entrepreneurs, and all that, is that they keep themselves so tight that at some point they just blow up. So, and last thing, the bonus is please drop the affirmations. So unless you are pretty much already very advanced, every time you see an affirmation, your subconscious is thinking, no, that's not true. No, I don't agree with that. No, I don't accept that. And it's just reinforcing that. So before you can really use affirmation, like, I love and accept myself, or whatever type of affirmation you want to use, there are some work that needs to be done to release and remove of default mode the self-hatred, the self-loathing. So I hope you enjoy that piece. It's really, really super important for you to sleep on it and really digest it. Huge impact on whatever you're doing. What is your level of self-worth? Obviously, massive impact if you have children. Try to build their intrinsic self-worth, not external validation, self-worth. And please comment, subscribe, like, because it helps as well other people to find the video, and hopefully that can help them or find the podcast. And I hope you really will give a try to improve your self-worth. It's really something that's going to help you. And what is the worst that can happen, really? So thank you so much for being here, and I'm really wishing you a lot of success. Thank you.